Yippee! The pride is both the party as well as the protest. In less than a century, we reached from the idea of this is a disease and this is a illness and this is a crime to this is actually humanity and this is a right. And India's journey has also been very unique and dramatic when it comes to pride. Back in 1800 in Germany, there was a law named Paragraph 175 which made sex between men a crime. There was a doctor named Magnus Hirschfeld who in 1879 with his other men formed a team known as Scientific Humanitarian Committee which filed petitions and convinced the lawmakers that the love between men should never be called as a crime. Although they didn't succeed straight away, but it was first time in the history of the world that an organized LGBTQIA plus rights movement was initiated. In Britain also, same-sex activities has been criminalized for centuries under the Bagheri Acts. It was in the 1950s that the things started to change, when first of the government reports known as Wolfenden Report of 1957, which gave a bold statement saying that what consenting adults do in private should not be a law's business. It influenced the Sexual Offences Act of 1967, which decriminalized homosexuality, but with two major restrictions: that the adults should be over the age of 21 years and this should happen only in private. This law applied first in England and Wales and later on in 1980 went to Scotland, in 1982 to Northern Ireland. So the equality was given but not in full, but still the criminalization was gone. Although the European countries have progressed, still there are multiple countries in Asia and Africa which still have anti-LGBTQIA plus laws. These countries are predominantly under the colonial rule, forced to have such laws by the European nations only. But the harsh reality is that some of these harsh laws exist till date in some of the countries. On June 28, 1969, police raided a gay bar in New York City known as Stonewall Inn. The LGBTQIA plus people were being harassed multiple times at those times, but this time they fought back the raid, and for 6 nights the roads of Stonewall were filled with anger and defiance. Modern historians say that it was this time in the history that initiated the modern day LGBTQIA plus rights movement known as the Stonewall Riots. So pride began not as a party but as a resistance. A year later in 1970, not only New Yorkians but other cities like Chicago, Los Angeles and many other American cities marched for the Stonewall Riots, what they called as Christopher Street Liberation Day. These marches became the very first pride marches in the history of the world, and slowly they start spreading all across the globe. Later in 1978, an artist known as Gilbert Baker made something which was going to be very iconic in the history of LGBTQIA plus movement. He created the rainbow flag. Each color of the flag representing a different emotion, different representation and a different identity of hope, life and happiness. Today, this rainbow flag is the common point for solidarity and pride among the LGBTQIA plus community. For long, doctors and psychiatrists have treated LGBTQIA plus community as a mental illness. They thought it should be something which should be cured, and so-called conversion therapies were practiced. Soon things began to change. In 1973 USA, American Psychological Association APA gave the position statement that homosexuality is not a mental illness. This also started changing the public opinion that if it is not an illness, then it should not be cured. In 1990, the World Health Organization also removed homosexuality from the list of diseases. Later in 2019, it further said being transgender is also not a mental health disorder. Rather, it classified it under the sexual health domain. Later, this officially came into effect in the year 2022. As medicine stopped saying LGBTQIA plus people as the diseased persons or the disorder person, the human rights activists also started catching up soon. And they started forcing the administration, government, and the policy makers that the human dignity of the LGBTQIA plus persons must be preserved. In 2006, experts from all around the world created Yogya Karta principles. These principles, based on the human rights laws like Basic Law of Privacy, Equality and Freedom, said that it should also be applied for gender identity, sex characteristics and sexual orientation. In 2017, they updated these principles known as Yogya Karta plus 10 to include terminologies like gender expression also in the human rights aspect. In the year 2011, the United Nations Human Rights Council passed their first ever resolution on LGBTQIA plus rights. They said that there should not be any discrimination or violence against LGBTQIA plus people for who they are or who they love. And LGBTQIA plus rights are a global human rights issue. This way, United Nations officially recognize LGBTQIA plus rights as the part of universal human rights. In the year 2001, Netherlands becomes the first country in the world to legalize same-sex marriage. It not only allowed the marriage between the same-sex couples, but also permitted to have adoption of the kids. This is how other countries also got inspired from the policies of Netherlands. Historically, we can see law reforms go in two steps only. First is decriminalization, when countries try to remove the laws which punish the LGBTQIA persons for their same-sex behavior. That is decriminalization. And second, once the decriminalization is achieved, the country then moves to rights and recognition, which includes rights of LGBTQIA plus person to marry, to adopt and to form a family, anti-discrimination rights and rights of recognition of gender identity, among many other rights. Now let us move to India's story, our own country. From the marches on streets to the battles in courts and to the societal shift. On July 2, 1999, it was first time in the history of India that some people on the streets of Kolkata came and walked in pride. They called it a friendship walk, but it was the first ever movement in the LGBTQIA plus rights, not only in India, but whole of the South Asian continent. By mid-2000s, Mumbai also started hosting many pride events, but it was in 2008 that the first ever Queer Azadi Mumbai Pride happened. In the very same year, Delhi Pride also began in June 2008, which paved a way for many other cities to collaborate and bring up their own LGBTQIA plus prides, showing the unity and diversity as well as visibility to LGBTQIA plus community. It was in 2009 that Delhi High Court, under the Naz Foundation case, first time in the history of India, struck down Section 377, saying that everyone has right to privacy, equality and dignity. Unfortunately, in 2013, under Suresh Kumar Kaushal case, Supreme Court of India recriminalized the homosexual acts, and this gave a huge setback and protests all over the country. Then in 2014, Nalsa judgment came, where transgender persons got the right to self-identify their gender, and Supreme Court officially recognized them as third gender. Supreme Court also ordered the government of India to provide welfare schemes and protection to the transgender community. In 2017, under the Puttaswamy case, Supreme Court of India gave a landmark judgment on right to privacy. Supreme Court also said that sexual orientation is also a part of person's privacy, and hence it also paved a way once again towards the decriminalization of homosexuality. In Navteej Singh Johar case of 2018, finally, once and for all, Supreme Court of India struck down Section 377, which criminalized homosexual acts, at least giving the right of their privacy, freedom, dignity, and non-discrimination to the consenting adults. Striking down of Section 377 is truly the freedom movement for the LGBTQIA+ community in Indian context. In 2018, Indian Psychiatric Society made it very clear that homosexuality is not a disease. They also condemned the conversion therapy practice and calling it a misconduct. In 2019, the Transgender Persons Protection Act was passed, and in 2020, the rules for the act were made. This act protects the transgender persons from the discrimination in housing, education, and healthcare, among other social services. In 2019, Madras High Court recognized a transgender woman as a bride under the Hindus Marriage Act. Also, it banned the sex reassignment surgery on the intersex infants. In 2021, Madras High Court gave very strong directions to the officials saying that we should protect the queer rights of the queer couples, spread awareness in the society, and ban the conversion therapy. In 2022, the National Medical Commission officially said that conversion therapy is a professional misconduct for doctor, and the license may also be cancelled for those doctors who practice conversion therapy on LGBTQIA+ people. In 2023, the Supreme Court of India under Suprio versus Union of India heard the plea around the marriage equality case for same-sex couples, although it didn't recognize the right to marry as the fundamental right for the same-sex couples. Instead, judges asked the parliament and urged the government to look into the matter for the same-sex marriage equality and protect the queer families. The Supreme Court also said that although there is no marriage equality in the country, but still the LGBTQIA+ person has the right to form the chosen families. In the year 2024, the Government of India under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare officially released the Standard Operating Procedures (SOP) for transgender medical surgical practices, including the gender affirmative surgeries. In the year 2025, the Kerala High Court recognized the terms parents for the queer couples instead of male and female counterparts of mother and father. The Kerala High Court also said that birth certificate also should be gender neutral. India has came a long way for constitutional recognition of LGBTQIA+ rights from the colonial-era criminalization laws. But still, there is a huge journey ahead. Hence, the pride is remembrance and pride is insistence. So if you are liking our content, do press the bell icon, subscribe us, like us, and share this video with all your friends and relatives.